I mean, if somebody says, for instance, well, what have you produced in the West other than slavery and racism and inequality and all of these things? I say, okay, let me just start with cities: Paris, Rome, Florence, Barcelona, Madrid, Lisbon, Venice.
Portland used to be pretty nice.
I wouldn't list Portland. The point is,
in the old days,
the list could go on almost endlessly. The great university cities: Heidelberg, Regensburg, Oxford, Cambridge. You think this is nothing? I'm just talking about cities here. I've not even got on to the rest of it. I've not got on to scientific achievements. I've not got on to all the cultural achievements. But I could.
So this is sort of the same question that I asked you at the beginning in terms of why didn't our institutions have enough to stand up, our secular institutions, but are you surprised that the religious institutions, whether you fully believe in them or not, that they didn't have better defenses? You would think that these things that have really lasted for thousands of years and have made mistakes along the way and wars have been fought and we can do that whole thing, but you're not exaggerating when you talk about what's happening in the churches and the temples of America right now. I mean, they've traded in most of what we thought their beliefs were.
And it's very strange because, I mean, I agree with the historian of Christianity, a historian of the ancient world, Tom Holland, who has said in the past, that actually Christianity, for instance, it should do the weird stuff. Like, what makes Christianity extraordinary are the claims it makes about the world. If the weird stuff, as Tom Holland calls it, include, the virgin birth, the crucifixion, the resurrection. But this is Christianity. Take them away and you haven't got Christianity. Insert in its place the same, as I say, banal things that you get everywhere else in the age, and you don't really have a religion. You just got another iteration of the social justice movement. But I believe that weird stuff is absolutely central to it. Same thing with Judaism. It's the things that make them different from everything else that are the things that you'd want to hold on to, not the stuff you'd give up and import this like crappy D'Angeloism. Why would you go from angels to D'Angelo?
That's a good question. I should have. I consider Dennis Prager my rabbi. I'll have him ask that next time at the high holidays. Well, from there, actually, that's a good segue to gratitude, which is next in the book. Man, we could all use a little bit more of that in the West, huh?
Yeah,
I think some people are kind of waking up to it now. Do you sense that? That there is a feeling of, oh man, we might be really giving this thing away.
Maybe things like Ukraine remind us of that. You've got people in 2022's homes are being shelled by tanks from an invading neighboring country, and it could be us. Maybe it helps a little bit to put in proportion the luck we have in basically stable and vaguely peaceful societies, or broadly peaceful, substantially peaceful, mainly peaceful societies. The reason why I write about gratitude is because, apart from the fact it's been something that's been much on my mind in recent years, it's, as I say, it's the only counter you can have to resentment. And we've lived in an age of resentment, and the war in the West is significantly a war waged by resentful people. People who wallow in resentment, who wallow in blaming other people for anything in their lives that does not go right, who always have someone to blame. Nietzsche again writes about this. The problem with resentment, the problem with resentful people, is that there is actually only one true answer you can have to them to stop their resentment, which is to say to them, you are right. There is something which is wrecking your life and is ruining you. And the thing is you. You are the thing. Now, the problem with that is the last message anyone wants to hear. And so there will always be an inbuilt reason for resentful people to stop ever looking inwards.
Is that the greatest trick of social justice in a way? That it took everything off the self, it took everything off the individual and just put it on the machine?
It's certainly one of them. And, you have to talk to these things at similar depths. And by the way, I think this is something the right's got very badly wrong in recent years. The left talks in terms of resentment, and the right will talk about tax cuts. That's not actually talking on the same level.
Yeah.
They're talking at a tectonic level, and the right is talking at a fiddling level. Important fiddling, no doubt, but fiddling. The only counter to real resentment is gratitude, is to turn your attitude towards life around and to be encouraged to do so. Now, this is perfectly possible, and one of the things is to realize what a life of resentment actually looks like. Dostoyevsky in the Brothers Karamazov has a fantastic passage where the devil appears and says to one of the brothers, that gratitude is something he can't do. And when I read that first, I thought, that's amazing. Only Dostoevsky would throw away that insight that the devil is not capable of gratitude. But the gratitude comes, or should come from, okay, these are things that, if somebody says, for instance, well, what have you produced in the West other than slavery and racism and inequality and all of these things? I say, okay, let me just start with cities: Paris, Rome, Florence, Barcelona, Madrid, Lisbon, Venice.
Portland used to be pretty nice.
I wouldn't list Portland. The point is,
in the old days,
the list could go on almost endlessly. The great university cities: Heidelberg, Regensburg, Oxford, Cambridge. You think this is nothing? I'm just talking about cities here. I've not even got on to the rest of it. I've not got on to scientific achievements. I've not got on to all the cultural achievements. But I could. Now, if you look at it in that light, you can be reminded that yes, it's possible to do what the deconstructionists argued that we should all do, which is to tear everything apart, break everything down, always deconstruct everything other than their own careers. You can do that, or you can stand back and look at what you have. You could look at a block of marble and talk about the labor that it costs to get it out of the ground. You could talk about the cost of labor and whether or not people were properly paid for getting it out of the ground. Or you could stand back and look at the Pieta. These are two totally different attitudes, but they're both possible. Mm-hmm. You can stand in Venice and say, what a terrible testimony to inequality. Or you could marvel.
Yeah. And there's one that's better than the other. I think that's what you're saying.
So you get what I'm leading to.
I think I got it. Culture is what you end on. And we've this whole conversation in some ways is couched around culture. But everyone says we're in a culture war right now, or the culture wars are raging.
Yes, the cultural one is the most painful one in a way, because this is where the D'Angeloism, Kendiism, this is where it is really at its ugliest, is when this horrible retributive game, looking at everything through the eyes of slavery and colonialism, gets put onto this horrible beam, gets put onto the most delicate, fragile and precious things. I give examples of artwork that has actually been closed up now, including one of my favorite painters. His work's been shut away in the Tate Gallery in London because of a claim that one of the figures in it is racist. And the man who painted this, Rex Whistler, died on his first day in action in 1944 in Normandy. He's posthumously been defamed by the Tate Gallery as a racist. He wasn't a racist. And he lost his life fighting Nazism. And they've defamed him posthumously. They've done the same thing with artist after artist. They're doing the same thing with classical music at the moment. They can't find enough Black Baroque composers. So what?
Yeah.
So what? But there are Baroque ensembles across America that are now tearing themselves apart over this. Orchestras doing the same thing. Yeah. They notice that, that the canon of Western music and Western literature is horribly dominated by what they call dead white males. By the way, one of the things I love in that is that they don't only attack people for being white and being males, but for being dead. It's like, what kind of a loser would die?
The least they could do is stick around so we can attack them to their face, you know?
What kind of losers are these people, like Bach?
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.